All right, so first of all, it's always been my goal to improve relationships between disparate groups of people, whether it's age or economic status or race or whatever, by helping people develop empathy and understanding alongside compassion and mercy. And I'm going to continue to do the same thing. In fact, that's what I'm attempting to do here. And my goal is, in this conversation and in every conversation I have about race, is to understand the other side, to understand what the other side is thinking, feeling, experiencing, because I can't do that by myself. If I am on the other side, then that's not something I can do. And so I want to have greater empathy and compassion, but I need to understand. Okay? And right now, the chants and the shouts and the media coverage and the talking points, they've all been very hateful, angry, violent, and accusatory. And that's not how you develop compassion and understanding. That's how you make enemies. And so I want to see why you're so angry. And don't get angry at that question. Say, well, it's obvious. It's not obvious to me. And if it's not obvious to me, you need to make it obvious to me. Otherwise, you're not going to get anywhere. That's just part of the process of developing dialogue between disparate groups. And understand that my arguments are not attacks. Okay, I'm not trying to attack you, but rather an attempt to understand. And if this is beyond what you have the time or the will to do, then I understand, and I'll stop harassing you. But what I'd like is for us to develop a dialogue that can reach not just ourselves, but other people and help us understand. So let me address the video, as you suggested. And I'm sorry for the length, but the rant was riddled with all kinds of logicals and problems, and so I'm going to do it as succinctly as I can. So I've got my notes over here. I'm going to try to make sure that I get all of those. Now, many of the things that he stated were true. Okay, his history lesson was mostly true. I mean, he had his dates right. He had a lot of the basics right, but he lumped every Christian into one group, the Roman Catholic Church. And he projected the behaviors of the Pope in the 1400s with Christian behavior today. That's a logic leap that no one can make. Now, I will say that his assertion that Jesus wasn't white, absolutely true. In fact, there's a YouTube video called "There Is No White Jesus." I think it's a BBC show. I don't know. They're English or Scottish or something like that. Hilarious video. Please go watch that. But he also said that our country was founded on racism and slavery. Now, this might be able to be claimed for the southern half of the country because their economy was based on racism, but it had nothing to do with the concept of the formation of the country. Yes, the people that formed the country were probably racist, at least partially, maybe not all of them, but I would say the vast majority of them, because everyone in the world was. You know, you can't look at someone and say, how dare you be like everyone else when you know it's wrong? Well, you don't know it's wrong when everyone else says it's right. That's just not how life works. And so, and it wasn't like slavery was invented by the United States. Even chattel slavery wasn't invented by the United States. Every country in history, basically, has had slavery to one extent or another. And I will say that the slavery that the United States developed was more brutal than, as far as I know, every other form of slavery. But to say that our nation was founded on racism and slavery is to ignore the actual founding of our nation and to suggest that racism and slavery were the why we made our nation, which has been proven false. Even though I can't remember what, there's a project, I want to say the 16-something project or something like that, where they claimed that, you know, the Civil or the Revolutionary War was fought to keep slaves. That's provably and patently false. They've been corrected by their very liberal friends to say, no, that's not the case. So if that's what he's quoting, then he's just flat wrong and uneducated on the subject. I also want to get into some more of his mistakes, but before I do that, I want to make sure that you understand that I understand hyperbole. Okay, I teach English. I know, to overstate a fact, that's fine. But when you're doing it in a discussion about race, it gets tricky. Because when you're using hyperbole to discuss race, that's racist. You know, when you say every single white Christian in this country, that's a racist statement. I mean, the only thing you could say about that group is that they're white Christians. You can't say anything about their faith, their belief systems, their attitudes, their opinions about race. You can't make claims like that. And so when you use hyperbole in a discussion about race, you start making racist statements. So I'm going to attack a few of his hyperbolic statements. I don't know. In fact, I'm not sure you can say hyperbolic. Isn't that like a chamber where the air pressure's? I don't know. Anyway. Okay, so this man's rant was basically filled with a lot of racist, bigoted statements that, had they been said about a minority, he would have been trashed online. And maybe he was anyway. I don't know. I didn't read any of the comments or anything like that. Yeah, if he had said every single black American, he would have been lynched. You know, not literally, but he would have been lynched online. So how come he can say that about white people? It's not fair. Let's have an honest discussion, not just, and it really is a rant. It's not a discussion. Okay, so first of all, his accusations in general have almost no backing. I know a lot more about the proof for his points than he apparently does. He cites like 3 instances, a couple of historical dates and stuff like that, but he gives almost no statistics, and some of the numbers that he did give actually show an improvement in racism. So I have a really hard time taking anything he says seriously when he's offering no real proof. I honestly think that the only way to get rid of racism is through generational change, which is slow. And maybe that's what we're doing. Maybe I'm not at the pinnacle where I'm truly not racist. I don't know. But if I don't know, then I don't know. I mean, I've searched myself and have not found any genuine racism. And so it's going to take another generation and another generation and so on and so forth to slowly weed out this problem of racism, rather than like making laws, because laws don't change people's attitudes. They barely change people's behaviors. But even worse than all of this, his groups that about all whites, like he claims that all of us were taught this, and he even like adds addendums on that. All of us were taught this, every single one. Like he removes the hyperbole from it and says, no, I'm talking about every single one. Well, he doesn't know that. He doesn't know how I was raised. I was not raised to hate black people. His experience of having to lock the doors when you go through the ghetto, I didn't do that. And I grew up part of my life in Alabama. I went to a mixed school. My best friend in kindergarten and first grade was a black kid. I didn't know any difference. I didn't know it was bad. Well, no one taught me it was bad. Obviously, it's not bad. But no one taught me that it was bad. And then he says, not a single one of you gives a damn. That you can't say that. That's not true. Because I do. So maybe he doesn't. But I'm assuming he does because he's making this video ranting about it, so he automatically cancels out his argument. And you may say, well, this is just an emotional appeal. Okay, fine. Then don't use it as evidence. Then don't offer it up and say, see, this is proof. It's not proof at all. It's just opinion. It's a rant, and it doesn't back you. In fact, it makes you look more weak when you use this as a defense, because you're using unsubstantiated, opinioned arguments to defend your position, and you're not going to get anywhere with that. These statements that he made, they're racist. To assume something about race based solely on the color of their skin is a racist statement. That's the definition of racism. And maybe he was taught to be racist, but I wasn't. Maybe his friends were taught to be racist. Maybe every white person he knows is a racist. I'm going to give him credit for that. I know a few racists. I do. Some of them are teenagers, because I'm a teacher, so I know a lot of kids. Some of them are adults. Most of them are older people. But most of the white people, the vast majority, are not racist. Certainly not overtly racist. I think you'd have to be pretty brave to be overtly racist in this society today. Next, he spends a lot of time assuming that racism is the cause for every ill in the black community. Since cops kill blacks at a higher rate than whites, percentage-wise for their representation in the population, they actually don't kill more blacks than whites. That because there's 17% of the population is black, so they actually don't. But if you account for the percentage, they do kill a higher percentage of black people. But that doesn't mean they're racist. Doesn't mean the cops are racist. They could be, but it's not proof. And he uses the deaths as proof, but it's not. You're trying to use something that is not, that could be evidence, but it has to be directly linked to his accusation of racism. And the odds are against all cops being racist, even all the cops that shoot black people, because a lot of the cops are black. And so they're not thinking you're less than me because I'm white and you're white. I'm not white. I'm black. There must be other factors involved in these shootings. And we don't hear about those. All we ever hear about is the white cops shooting black ones because that's what sells ads. That's what gets people to watch. There's a lot more going on out there than we hear about in the media. And there could be other factors, poverty, high unemployment, poor education, and more could all be factors contributing to the cops killing black people more than white people, because those things are proven to be higher statistically in black communities than white communities. And he also doesn't address the far higher rate of black on black crime than white on black crime. And I think that has to be part of the discussion. Because if black people are killing more black people than white people are killing white people, and that's not accounting for the differences in percentages of the population. There's literally numerically more black people being killed by black people than white people killing black people. So there's got to be other causes than just racism for the deaths of all these black people. Now, if I were a black person, I'd be ticked too. Why are we dying at the hands of guns so often? What's going on? I'm just not sure that racism is the sole cause. And that's what he does. He just assumes it's white supremacy. He assumes it's racism. And those assumptions, you can't make those. Basically, he's begging the claim, and then he's propping up a straw man and attacking it. Now, that's two fallacies in one. So, I don't know, I guess that's talent, maybe? I don't know. All right, lastly, he offers no solution to the problem except don't be silent. Well, he's not being silent. I'm not being silent. You're not being silent. That's why we're having this conversation. So if we're not being silent, then what's with the accusation? Everyone's talking about it. So obviously silence is not a problem. What's the solution that he's offering to make this better? Now, I do believe that the solution is going to be through verbal communication, but it's not going to be through accusation like he's doing. It's going to be through dialogue, where family's leaving. So my son's driving, so, say a prayer if you're a Christian. If you're not, just, send them happy thoughts that they make it. And so I don't even remember where I was. We need to have good conversations like this one. I'm having a conversation with my black pastor. I had one Sunday night. I'm going to have one again Thursday morning. Trying to work through this stuff to understand it better. That's what we need, because that's how you develop compassion and understanding, through interaction, positive interaction, not chants, not rants, not riots, not looting, not violence or accusation. You develop compassion by becoming friends with the enemy. And I'm going to put enemy in quotation marks, because maybe they're not your actual enemy. There are people out there that are the real racists, and they're your enemy, and you don't have to be friends with them. But assuming that every person, because of the color of their skin, is racist, it's not going to get you anywhere. Now, I want to add just a little bit on the end, because I want to make sure that we don't agree, right? Because we could agree. When I debate with people, I find more often than not, we agree, we just don't know it yet. So when you say white privilege or racism or systemic racism or whatever phrase you want to use, white supremacy, whatever. If you mean by that black people on average are starting with less advantages than white people on average, then I wholeheartedly agree. That's statistically provable. That black people struggle with education more, they struggle with poverty more, they struggle with violence more, drug addiction more. That's actually, I'm not sure about that last one, but I know the other three are true. And those set you back. They have less dual parent homes, less stable homes, more domestic abuse. And so all of those things contribute to their starting at a negative compared to their average white counterpart. That's true. Okay? And I already agree with that. So if that's what you're saying, then we agree. But why? And don't just say, well, because white people are racist. Because I don't have any control over your life. I don't have any control over your poverty. I don't personally. Other people might. But, drug addiction, violence. I'm not contributing to those things personally. So attacking me is not helping. What is the genuine cause? Is it just because white people hate black people? That doesn't seem likely. The numbers just don't add up on that. But if by these terms, white supremacy, white privilege, racism, whatever, if you mean that whites are the majority of the population and therefore their lives are easier than blacks in general, I agree with that too. That's what it's like as a minority. And I know you're not here by choice. I get that, but that's what it's like to be a minority in a location. I'm actually a minority where I live. The majority of the population here is about 60 to 70% Latino. So, and I feel it a little bit. I don't think it's anywhere close to what black people are experiencing, but that's not racism. That's just the natural. That doesn't indicate intention. Okay? That doesn't mean the white people are trying to put you down. That's what it's like to be a minority in a location. Ask any Christian that lives in a majority Muslim country, or a Asian that lives in the Middle East, or a black person living in Russia. It doesn't matter what color your skin is. If you're the minority, you're going to experience that type of white privilege. And that's just because people suck. That's just people living their lives. It's not an attack, okay? This is how people work. If by these terms you mean that white people don't care about black people because people don't care about other people in general, I agree with that too. I think that most people, I know all people are naturally self-centered. It's a survival technique that our brain has developed, but it's not healthy and it's not productive. It's just in there. And so if you mean that, white privilege is because people just live their lives and don't reach out to help black people, I think on average that's also probably true. I know that's not always true. I know there are a lot of white people that are very much in favor of aiding African Americans in the community, but that's not racism. That's very natural. People suck. People are going to be about themselves. That's why the Bible says don't just, be about your own interests, but the interests of others. He bothered to tell us that because we are about our own interests. And that's not racism. That's just selfishness. And so, if that's what you mean, then I agree that that's what's going on. I just don't think it's racism. If by these terms you mean that there are some white people that literally do actually hate black people for whatever reason, however foolish or, misguided, then I absolutely agree with you. I've met some, a few, not a ton, but I've met some, and it's provable because it's demonstrable. You can say that here is a racist. Ask them questions, what's wrong with the black community? Well, they're black. That's what's wrong with them. They are inferior. I don't like black people because they're all violent or angry or lazy. I don't know. Honestly, couldn't really tell you. But whatever reason that they would have, that's racist. And that's a legit racism. And there are people that exist that are like that. But how many? Right? How many can you prove? And why, if it's not all, are all white people made to feel guilty for those few people that truly are racist? Why he makes the accusation every single one of us is racist. Well, that's a racist statement. If I said that all Muslims are terrorists because of a few Islamic terrorists, that's racist. Well, it's religious, but you know what I'm saying. If I say that all black people are violent because of the looting and riots and blamed you for all of that, that's racist. So to say that all people are guilty for the ones that are racist is a racist statement. And you're not going to get anywhere getting people to understand and have compassion, which is the only solution to this problem, by accusing them. Only by befriending them and helping them see your side of the story. So that's it. I encourage you to write a response. You can either write it or you can video it and send it to me. I think this is a great conversation. I hope it continues. I want you to, I want you hopefully to, start giving me some more either personal experience or actual data on the subjects, because the last couple of videos have been pretty scarce on that. So anyway, thank you. Hope to hear from you soon.